Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside William & Mary School of Marine Science at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, a four-part webinar series. I'm really excited for you all to join us tonight for part 3 of our webinar series, where tonight we'll explore our new professional Master of Arts in Marine Science. My name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. And I'm very excited about the program that we have for you tonight. The panel that will be coming up to talk to you is exceptional, and I can't wait to hear from them all. So thank you for taking time out of your night to come and listen to us. We really hope to have a really engaging and exciting event. As I said, I have a really exciting panel. The first is Jill Bieri. Jill is a VIMS alum from '92. She was a part of our Department of Biological Sciences, and she earned her Master of Science through VIMS. Jill has done a whole lot since leaving VIMS, and I'll let her talk a lot more about it in a little bit later. But right now, Jill is the director of the Nature Conservancy's Virginia Coast Reserve, and I'm really thankful for her joining us tonight and taking time out of her schedule to come and talk with everybody. And I'm also really thankful for all the mentorship and support that she has provided as we've got this MA program up and running. Also tonight, we'll be joined by Shantelle Landry. Shantelle is a current VIMS Master of Science student in our Department of Biological Sciences. Our MA program is brand new, and we currently don't have a cohort yet. That's why we're building it, and we're really excited about it. But we didn't want to deprive you all of being able to ask those pressing questions about what grad student life is like, or what the graduate program here at VIMS really feels like from that student perspective. So Shantelle is going to be here to provide that for you. But also, I'm really excited to have Shantelle because pretty much any education or outreach program that VIMS runs, Chantelle's always in the mix. She's typically running it or at least participating. So she'll have a lot of really great input to provide for everybody who's interested in that like education, outreach, really community engagement portion of the MA program. So looking forward to hearing from Shantelle a little bit later. Finally, we'll be joined tonight by Dr. Molly Mitchell. Molly is a VIMS graduate from '03 with her Master's of Science, and then in 2018 with her PhD. She graduated from our Department of Biological Sciences, and Molly has returned to VIMS, where she is now a research assistant professor, but she's currently the MA program director. And so if you're coming to VIMS for the MA program, you'll get to interact with Molly a whole lot. So very thankful that she's joining us tonight to provide us all that insight. Before I get to turn you all over to our wonderful panelists, you get to listen to me talk for a little bit longer to provide you all with an overview of who VIMS is and the School of Marine Science and what we can really offer you. The School of Marine Science is located at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, but we are one of William & Mary's 5 graduate schools. William & Mary, for those of you who don't know, is a globally recognized university located in Williamsburg, Virginia. The School of Marine Science is actually located at VIMS about 30 minutes to the east of William & Mary's main campus, which allows us to be directly on the water. As you can see from this top right photo, we couldn't be much closer to the water, and having a bunch of marine scientists here who have water on the brain and in their heart at all time, we needed that access to the water and to all the resources and the environment that provides us. So though we aren't located directly on William & Mary's main campus, all of our students have access to all of the great amenities and resources that a globally recognized university provides, such as your recreation center, your mindfulness, wellness, health centers, the giant library system that runs throughout William & Mary, all of that. So that's a great resource that our students get have access to. Here at the School of Marine Science, we offer an MA, an MS, and a PhD program in marine science, and we're going to talk a lot more tonight about the MA program. A really great aspect of VIMS is the amount of professional insight and expertise that is here thriving on campus. We have approximately 50 full-time faculty members here supporting our education and research initiatives, and all of them have PhDs in their respective fields. That ratio of faculty really allows our students to have direct and close contact with all of these experts. And speaking of graduate students, here on campus at any one time, we have anywhere from mid-80s to 100 graduate students bustling about campus, which makes us one of the largest marine science programs in the United States. So It's a bustling, thriving campus that I'm very excited to be a part of. As in terms of amenities and resources that are directly available on the VIMS campus, our students have access to a private beach, which you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see students utilizing our private beach for recreation purposes, but it's also a great location for our field trips, research, and field courses to all take place at. So that's a great amenity. Also, by having such close access to the water, we have our own boat basin, which houses our 30+ research vessels, which includes our latest state-of-the-art RV Virginia, which you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, which we're all really in love with. Also here on campus, students have access to our oyster aquaculture center, our seagrass nursery, and then we have an Eastern Shore lab, which is our second campus located on Virginia's Eastern Shore, which is a great additional resource that students have access to. Another really prominent aspect of the VIMS campus is all of the centers and programs that run through our campus. For instance, here on campus, we have our Center for Coastal Resources Management, which is where Molly's employed at. We also have the Chesapeake Bay National Estuary Research Reserve, our Marine Advisory Services, and Virginia Sea Grant. All of them run through campus, and these are a great resource for our students to interact with. It helps provide them with a lot of professional development opportunities and different networks and associations that allow them to have more outreach, education, policy, advisory services in their curriculum while they're here at VIMS. As for our program, VIMS is really run by our 3-part mission, which is to provide research, education, and advisory services to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So here in our services, we really expand the whole spectrum of marine science work. And our expertise is really in coastal and estuary science in the Chesapeake Bay. However, the research, the work, and the outreach that we do is influential from inland watersheds all the way to the open ocean. And our students are really at the heart of our ability to achieve our mission. Anytime we're engaging in our research mission, in education or advisory or outreach services, our students are there in the mix, making sure that we can be successful and applying all of our science directly to the important communities surrounding us. And that's a great part about coming to VIMS as a grad student, is that you have immediate access to all these professional development opportunities that allow you to flourish and develop as the future leaders of marine science, which led us to the development of our brand new Professional Master of Arts, or the M.A. in Marine Science. This is a new program that's designed for students interested in pursuing careers that bridge marine science with other professional areas. So if you're really wanting to intertwine a marine science education with areas like education, outreach, policy, law, business, management, nonprofits, and other areas, then the MA is the perfect program for you. And you're going to hear about why that is later on tonight. I would be remiss if I turned you all away without touching upon some of the admission components for our application for enrolling here. The first is that if you come here and you're interested and you leave here excited about applying, the application is open and available to you right now. It closes on January 6th. So please make sure that you are working on and getting that submitted to us before January 6th. The application components include all the things listed below, and you can find all that information on the website. So please make sure you visit that. It'll answer all the questions that you might have. Also, if you would prefer to have a deeper dive, then I would encourage you to join us on Tuesday night, November 17th, so next Tuesday, for our final webinar, which is all about an overview and inside look of what the admissions process really is here at VIMS, and hear from faculty and students about what makes a strong application and helps for that graduate school search. So very excited for that final webinar, and hopefully we'll see you all there and we can answer all your questions. But with that, I am going to turn you all over to our first panelist. So Shantelle Landry, will you come and join me up here and tell everybody about your journey in marine science?
Sure. So hi, everyone. As John said, I am Shantelle Landry, and I'm a current master's student at VIMS. So just a brief background about me. I have always been one of those kids who grew up knowing what they wanted to do. And oddly enough, that was marine science. And initially started out with being a dolphin trainer, like so many other people I know, but that's evolved into what I am going to mention later. In terms of undergrad, I went to Roger Williams University up in Rhode Island, where I studied marine biology. And in terms of my undergrad experience, it really kind of helped me figure out what I wanted to do in marine science. So going into undergrad, I really didn't know all of the different fields and avenues you can take in marine science. I feel like when I initially thought of marine science, I thought of aquariums and the big things that I feel like most people think about. However, I went through a few experiences, such as I had an internship at this nonprofit called Save the Bay in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And there I was an education intern, which really, really helped me figure out that I really wanted to go into outreach and education. I had this wonderful opportunity where I could teach the general public, and I was invited to go into classrooms and teach grade school children all about the coastal environment around them, which I really, really enjoyed. I initially had no interest or desire to go into grad school until I started doing some research in undergrad, kind of to boost my resume. Really wasn't sure if I wanted to go get a job or what to do specifically. And so once I started doing some research on hard clams in Rhode Island, my advisor at the time recommended I look into doing or continuing my degrees further into graduate school. And I had no idea where to begin. So he kind of helped me through the application process and looking for schools. And his number one school that he recommended to me was actually VIMS. I had never heard of VIMS before my advisor told me about it. So I did a little deep dive into VIMS, and I actually came down to VIMS to visit. And I ended up really liking it. I was very hesitant because I am from New England, and I'd only been to Virginia a few times, and it's not a short drive to New England. So I was really nervous about coming to a new place and not really knowing the area. But VIMS turned out to be great. And I found the community really welcoming and opening. And I can answer more questions about that later. But yeah, at VIMS, I'm pretty happy. I'm working away at my master's research. And as John also mentioned, I am very involved with the outreach and education department at VIMS. Just about any opportunity that I can get, I am working very closely with outreach and education. And yeah, when I initially heard about the MA program really quickly, it sounded like something that I personally would have loved to have come to VIMS for. I don't necessarily need to be working on a master's thesis to go into outreach and education, and the opportunity to have an internship or to work on a project that would really gear me towards outreach and education sounded like the perfect opportunity. So I'm slightly jealous that you all get to do this. But that's pretty much my little spiel about me.
Thank you so much, Shantelle. I really appreciate it. So I would now like to welcome Jill Bieri to come to the center screen and introduce herself to everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Good evening to everybody. Thanks for the invitation to be here, and I'm excited to share a little bit of my journey. I put together a few slides, some beautiful pictures to show you how beautiful Virginia is and some of the work that I've been doing. I'll start by saying I'm a 92. I graduated in 1992 with my master's degree. So I have been in the field for nearly 30 years, which is sometimes hard for me to think about, but I'm very grateful. I can't think of a time in my career when I did not love my job. And more than that, I can't think of a time when I didn't feel like I was really having an impact to the planet, an impact to society. I really have been just super fortunate. And that really all started at VIMS back in the early 90s. You know, the experience, the relationships, the exposure to just world-class science and world-class research really did lay a great foundation for me to go out into the world, and I'm very grateful. And I think one thing that I really think about is still how connected marine science is. A small world, really, and I still feel very connected to people who are working at VIMS in some way is related to my work. even 28, 30 years later. So it is a wonderful place to build that foundation for a successful and career. I'll have the next slide, John, just to tell you a little bit about what I do now. I have a lot of fun, and so I pulled together, it was kind of fun today to find pictures of myself having fun at my current job. But I'm the director of the Virginia Coast Reserve for the Nature Conservancy. So I I'm very privileged to live and work on the eastern shore of Virginia, which is on the peninsula, surrounded by the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. And we happen to be the last expanse of coastal wilderness in the United States. So, we live and work in an area where an entire intact chain of barrier islands have been protected by the Nature Conservancy and our partners. We work with partnerships with research institutions, with state, with local, with federal agencies to manage the land and the waters. We do marine habitat restoration. We have a very important place for migratory birds, both terrestrial water birds and shore birds here. So we manage that kind of work. A lot of relationships, a lot of long-term research, a lot of community work. So we have a robust outreach and education program that I help to develop and fund, and hope that will be around to really allow this program to be embedded here in the community and have a really good relationship with that community to allow our conservation goals to thrive as we move forward. So that's a little bit of what I do now. I get to have a lot of fun. I work with a team of 12 professionals. So I work with some scientists, communicators, educators, conservationists, all of us, but a very robust and wide variety of skill sets on our staff here at the Virginia Coast Reserve. So that keeps our days very interesting here. Next slide, next picture. I'm excited about the new Master of Arts program at VIMS, and I've been thinking a lot about it. And as I knew that it was coming on, online, and just thinking about the kind of opportunities that it provides for graduate students that maybe I didn't have 28 years ago. The opportunity to do a project, not so focused on research, but to do a project, have a mentor that's outside of them, that's working in another aspect of this field, is very, very exciting. And then I started thinking about all of the things, we talk about this translation of, integration of, the application of marine science that this degree will really afford people to do. And so I thought, what are all the things that I have been involved in? Mostly I've been in nonprofits. So I left VIMS after working at VIMS 3 years after my graduate school. I left in 1995, and I've worked for the Center for Marine Conservation, which is now the Ocean Conservancy, which is a global nonprofit. I've worked for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, which is a regional nonprofit. I worked for the NOAA Chesapeake Bay office, which of course is a federal agency. And then I started my own environmental education nonprofit called Chesapeake Experience. And I did that for about 8 years before I came to the Nature Conservancy. So in that broad landscape of career opportunities that I've had, these are all of the things and more that I have had to learn how to do, to pass on experience, and really to become a pretty well-rounded professional. So I'm very grateful again for the foundation that I had at VIMS. But as you can see, it's more than just research. There are so many other opportunities in marine science to really make a really big difference. So with that, I know my time is probably up, so I will stop. I think I have one more pretty picture of the Eastern Shore and that extensive marsh system. And I'll look forward to some questions at the end of the panel. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate it. And those photos are really gorgeous. So thank you for providing them. With that, I would now like to welcome Molly Mitchell to the screen, and she'll introduce herself. And
Great, thank you, John. Yeah, so I am the MA program director for this new program we're just starting up this year. I'm really excited about the possibilities. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background so you can see why I'm excited about this MA program. Because candidly, if it had existed back when I got my MS, I might have chosen to do the MA. So I graduated with my MS from VIMS in 2003. And one of the things that I actually did, which was very unusual at the time, it's still unusual for the MS program, is I specifically asked my advisor to set up internships for me. And the reason I did that was because I had been out looking in the job world a little bit, and what I knew was that if you didn't have experience with work, not just a good academic background, but if you didn't have work experience, it's very hard to find a job in a really good environmental field. So I did internships actually for 3 summers in a row, and I worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service, with USGS, and with the National Park Service. Did a variety of different projects. I really enjoyed that. And after I graduated, I went and worked for one of the local governments in the environmental division. And so there I was doing management, right? So I was taking my science background and I was using it to help manage our resources. I really enjoyed interacting with people, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to share with people the reason that the regulations were the way they were, to explain to them the science behind it. I did not actually enjoy the regulatory portion of it. And so I returned to VIMS in a research and advisory joint role. And this is what's so special to me about VIMS. We actually have a role that's unique as far as I know among universities, and that we are mentioned many times in the Code of Virginia, specifically as marine advisors to the state. And so we have this built-in role where we answer the questions that the state agencies have about how to manage their resources. So we have this supporting role that our research provides that information. And the pictures over at the side show some of the variety of roles that I engage in all the time. So this is not sequential. This is, kind of ongoing. So in the picture on the left, I'm talking to the Virginia Coastal Policy Clinic. It's over at the law school at the College of William and Mary. And every year I get to teach one of their classes, and I teach them about the science behind the policies and the laws that they're learning about. I also teach at an architecture class at Hampton University. I guest lecture there every year, and I teach them about the science behind the sort of landscape architecture features that you might put in to an area. The picture at the top right is from a Senate briefing up on Capitol Hill. So this is an opportunity to talk to decision makers at the top levels about the science. This was about sea level rise and the impact sea level rise we're going to have in the Chesapeake Bay region. And then the bottom 2 pictures are my field work. So when I can, I like to escape and get out in the field. And I do a lot of work in marshes, particularly. So this is what I've really enjoyed about VIMS, is that it's not just a research place. I have the opportunity to engage in all these different aspects of it, and to work a lot with the policy and management communities. So then after a period of time, I got my PhD. So you'll see I graduated in 2018, which was a long time from when I started. But I think this is, really important if you're going to go on for a PhD, that you're sure that that's what you want to do. And it took me a long time to be sure that that was what I wanted to do. But anyway, I'm here now as a faculty, as a professor, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be starting this program. And so, John, if you'll switch the slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program, and hopefully you'll see how this kind of fits in with my interests from my life. Okay, so the Professional M.A. program is really designed to help provide the leadership, the translation we need between what the scientists can do, but then what society needs and what policymakers need. We know that this is has been a neglected area, and there's a lot of complaints about scientists not being able to talk to other disciplines. So we think it's really important to have an interdisciplinary program where the students are learning the science, and they're going to know the science as well as any MS student it does. But then they're also going to have other interests, and they're going to have other skills, and they're going to have other experiences that allow them to follow a sort of interdisciplinary path. The classes that you're going to take, I want to explain a little bit so you can see how this program, it's not just interdisciplinary in terms of like marine science and education or marine science and policy. VIMS is actually unusual in that we have an interdisciplinary science course. So you get a degree in marine science, not a degree in marine biology or marine chemistry. And so what that means is you're going to take the same core courses that an MS student or a PhD student would take. And so you just take 3 of the introductory fundamental courses. But what that means is that you have to take something probably in the area you're interested in, but then you have to take 2 classes that are going to stretch you a little bit, and they're really going to broaden your knowledge base. And this has been really important to me. When I was a master's student, we had to actually take all of these classes. And I have used information from every one of those classes at some point in my career. The other thing that I think is really important you'll see on this list is the 503 class, Interdisciplinary Research in Estuarine and Coastal Systems. This is the class they're going to take you out in the field, and they're going to teach you about experimental design and how you put an experiment together. And that's important when you're translating research for other people, and you need to be able to look at a study and see whether you think the results are robust, what you think, how far you think you can extend that study into other areas. It's important to know how an experiment should be designed so you can evaluate that. And statistics is the other area that you're going to take a class in, and that's the same thing. You just need to know whether the statistics that you see are reasonable. And when we see uncertainty, what does that actually mean? And how hesitant should that make us? And then there are advanced courses that depend on your department. So each student will be in a department, and it's based on their faculty advisors department. So there are slightly different requirements depending on the department you're in. And then the elective classes, we have a wide range of potential classes. Some of them are cross-listed with other parts of the college. So the environmental law, coastal marine policy are cross-listed. The public policy is cross-listed with the policy. We have classes in communicating science and in college teaching courses. We have classes on global change. And so we have a drone application class. So drone application surveys, that kind of thing for marine science specifically. So we have actually a really wide range of elective classes that you can take for different interests that mesh with different interests. And so the idea in this program is that you're all going to have this strong background in science, but then after the marine science stuff, what you take should be tailored to your interests. Okay. And so the way we're going to do that in addition to elective courses is through the capstone and internship. Now, I think internships are important because I told you that I did 3 of them when I was in college. And the internship is just a great opportunity to get some professional work experience, to see, what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. So that's an important part of an internship. And so the internship should be relevant to your interests. So if you're really interested in education, we want to get you an internship where you can do some communication and education. If you're really interested in law and policy, we want to get you an internship with like a law school or a law center or that kind of thing. The other really interesting part is the capstone project. And so the capstone project is a probably 1 to 1.5 year project. So this is a 2-year program, where you work with a VIMS faculty member. Okay, so they're your mentor, they're your advisor, and an external member like Jill Bieri. And you work on a project that is relevant to you. So, the outside mentor is picked based on your interests. But really the goal of these projects is to have a product at the end which is useful to someone. So unlike a thesis, which is just the research itself is what's being, is the final product. And if you get something additional out of it, that's great, but the research is the product. What we're hoping with the capstone is really to have something that's applicable that people can pick up and use. And I'm gonna turn it over to John now to talk about the admissions, but if he could also talk for a minute about professional development opportunities, John.
Yeah, perfect. And let me quickly answer a question that just came in the chat from KS asking if all the internship opportunities are in the Williamsburg area. Not necessarily. These were just the first parties that came to mind and fit into the screen that I have here. But one thing that's great about VIMS is that we're a very old marine science institute with over 1,000, I think we're at 1,100 graduate degrees awarded so far. So our network throughout the professional field is extensive, which I think Jill can probably comment on later on. But we have alumni working at most major aquariums throughout the US and abroad. We have alumni working at the Smithsonian and in other areas as well. So if there's potentially a region that you're interested in or an outlet that you're interested in, that's something that we would like to be aware of to see what kind of network that we have available to help provide you with that. So it's not just the Williamsburg area. However, these capstone project opportunities or internship opportunities that you see here are just ones that we already have loaded up already with easy access for our students. And they're very exciting opportunities. Molly also asked for me to talk a little bit about professional development opportunities. That's a big part as well about this project, is to just continue honing that conversation we have with our students about how they develop into their field and be experts and leaders. So we have different opportunities with our on-campus programs, like working through Virginia Sea Grant. They have regular panels and experiences on giving solid and succinct presentations, or professional development opportunities with our different educational programs on how to develop curriculums for K through 12 programs, or how to develop curriculum specifically for K through 12 educators. And also we're very fortunate that we get to collaborate with the other William & Mary colleges, the School of Education, their School of Business, their School of Law, to pair with them for their opportunities as well. So the professional development opportunities are out there in all different ways, depending on what you're interested in. If it's leadership, if it's community engagement, collaboration, teamwork, we have different possibilities for all of those areas. Now, to really quickly talk about the specifics of the MA program admissions process, I know I'm seeing a few questions in there. And the first is that unlike the MS in the PhD program, you do not need to contact an advisor right now. All you need to worry about is completing the application and submitting it to us. It'll be on Molly, myself, and the Associate Dean of Academic Studies here to work to pair you with an on-campus faculty mentor who will then act as your personal project mentor. So you do not need to be reaching out to advisors right now and asking if they have capacity in their labs, or if they have, if they're recruiting students for the MA program, because you just need to worry about submitting that application and getting it to us. Also, the personal statement for the MA program is specific for the MA program. It's different than what the MS and PhD programs are applying for, because we want to consider a lot more components as we're making our decisions and working to pair you with the appropriate mentor and potential capstone and internship opportunities. So please make sure you read through the personal statement request thoroughly and answer all three components as best you can. One thing I want to point your attention to is the middle section is what specific area or topic are you interested in focusing on for a capstone project and internship. You don't need to be fully specific. You're not locking yourself into any opportunity right now. We just want to know what area you're considering or interested in so that we can start planning on our end for matching you with the appropriate advisors. So you don't need to tell us right away that you're specifically looking for this opportunity in this organization. It can be a little bit more broad to provide us with that. However, if you do know opportunities that we've talked about or potential areas that VIMS is an expert in that really interests you and excites you, throw that in there. We would love to know, because if we can pair you with what your heart is telling you that you want, then we want to provide that. It's really important to us. And then finally, for admissions, we're really hoping that Molly and I will get to have, specifically Molly, will get to have on-campus or virtual interviews with all of the final round interviewee applicants. So just know that that'll be a component of the admissions process that we'll consider a little bit later on. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to request that Molly, Shantelle, and Jill return to the screen and we can answer some questions. So I think the first question that I'd like to ask, and I think, sorry, Jill and Shantelle, but this will probably go right towards Molly, but what would you say is the difference between the professional M.A. and the MS in marine science?
Yes. So the MS in marine science is really, it's a research-based degree. Most of our MS students, although we have students like Jill who go on to have careers in, nonprofits and education and management, most of our graduates probably go on to do research, to be engaged with an academic organization. And so that's really, it's a 3-year program. It's really science heavy. So that is kind of the goal of that. The professional M.A. program is really for people who know that they don't want to go into academia, but see this science as a really important part of their career path. But it's not going to be necessarily doing research. It's going to be in one of the myriad of other career paths that science helps inform. It's also a shorter program.
It's a shorter program that emphasizes the non-thesis track and instead having that capstone and the internship. So really important. The question I'd like to ask all of the panelists would be, what advice would you give to individuals who are thinking about going into graduate school for marine science? What's that golden nugget information that you have for everybody?
I think that, your heart has to be in it first, and then your mind. Make sure that it's what you want to do in terms of subject matter, but also it could really, graduate school is a little different than college. It's about thinking, what are my possible avenues to have a successful career? And it opens up a lot of doors, a lot of those connections that I was talking about earlier, more so even than college. So I would think, your heart and then your mind before you decide to go to graduate school.
Yeah, I really echo what Jill said. I think that's definitely extremely important. Definitely make sure that's grad school is something that you seriously are considering. Other advice I would say is to really look into the schools that you're interested in the programs, where they're located. Maybe if you can try and go visit the community, get to meet a few people. I know that made a big difference when I was narrowing down different graduate schools, and I think it can really help.
Yes, I think that's a great point, Shantelle. And unfortunately, I know this year everything's been a little more difficult in terms of doing that. But certainly I remember back when I was applying to graduate school that some of the schools with fantastic faculty, but there were things about the school that didn't fit well with me, the actual school. And so that, it ended up that VIMS had, both fantastic faculty, but also had a less rural, for me, I come from DC. I had a hard time with how rural many of the schools in marine science are.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Molly, there's a question for you. This is from Cecilia. Hi, Cecilia. You mentioned that you have to be sure about whether you want to pursue a PhD. Can you expand on that? Are there things in particular the potential applicants should be aware of or avoid? Jill, maybe you could also jump in on that in your experience about PhD versus master's.
So I think the thing to realize about a PhD is when it's a huge commitment of time. So if it's not something that's going to enhance your career path, it's a big time commitment. And the whole time you're doing that, you're typically out of the workforce, right? So you're missing that opportunity. And I think the other thing about a PhD is it does actually limit some job opportunities. Okay, so there's certainly places in the management world for people with PhDs, but a lot of those positions are not actually looking for people with PhDs, and they may not necessarily want to pay for someone with a PhD. So I think it's important to figure out what it is that you want to do and get the degree that matches with the requirements for that career path. Do you want to add anything to that, Jill?
I totally agree with you. I'll tell you from sort of my perspective, I was pretty sure that I did not want to go into academia. And so the PhD wasn't a path for me. I felt like having a really good base of science and research with my master's, would propel me into what I wanted to do. And then I'll say from my perspective as a person who hires for a global nonprofit, we have many scientists, not research scientists typically, but we have many scientists on staff. And as Molly says, if you've done a PhD project and you're really specific in your knowledge and your experience because of that PhD, sometimes it does limit, your opportunities out in the workforce other than research and academia.
Perfect. Thank you. We have a question from Claudia about what sort of opportunities are available as far as teaching assistantships or similar arrangements for MA. So I think, Molly, you and I can answer that, but I'd also really love to hear a little bit more from Shantelle about the education outreach you've done. You touched a little bit upon it during your own intro, but I'd love to go a little bit further about what you've actually done, because that's all really cool, in my opinion. So.
Would you like for me to start?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So as far as experiences in the outreach and education department, I have volunteered at a lot of festivals. So that basically just involves working at the VIMS tent. Anybody that comes up, we teach them about all the cool scientific and oceanic things that we have at the tent and talk a little bit about VIMS and what's going on at VIMS. My favorite outreach and education opportunity that I've had is actually been going into local boys and girls clubs. And what we did there is we would bring in a couple of different activities and get a group of kids that were really interested in science or maybe had a slight interest in science. And we would just go through these activities, whether that was we brought in some specimens from our library that we have with hundreds of specimens, or we did another ocean-related activity, and they really, really loved the experience, and you could see the excitement in their eyes. So I personally loved that opportunity that I've had. I've also been fortunate to help set up meetings with not stakeholders, but say Board of Education and other areas within the Gloucester area to try and see how VIMS can connect with other local businesses, just to see if there's anything that we can do to strengthen our community. And then I've also joined hands with a Virginia C program that we have at VIMS, where we could make a lesson plan, and those lesson plans are available through the VIMS website through teachers all over the world. And that was a really awesome opportunity as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I find them all really exciting. And your opportunities to go to the Virginia Aquarium to do research or to do education.
Forgot about that one.
Yeah. Molly, do you or I to talk about teaching assistantships or anything like that?
The MS students are funded through research assistantships. That is not a pathway that is open to MA students. There are other funding opportunities. And so there are TA-ships, there are classes both at VIMS, so there are graduate classes, and there are classes with the undergraduates at William & Mary that have TAs. So those are opportunities. And then there are workshop and internship type opportunities. So workshop I think it's a VIMS term. I'm not sure anyone else uses it actually, but workshop is a system where researchers who have a particular project that they need someone to work on can set up an amount of funding for that project. So for example, right now I have a workshop project I actually have some undergraduates working on it, but it's a workshop to help with a saltwater intrusion into wells, private wells. And so those are variable and they're very project specific. It kind of depends on what the funding opportunity is. Is there anything else I've forgotten, John?
Well, I would just say that there's a good number of our students who work as teaching assistants for both graduate and undergraduate courses. So either here at VIMS or at William & Mary's. And those are great opportunities for supporting faculty and developing lesson plans and stuff like that. So those are available potentially if the right skill set and courses line up. So those are opportunities. And then also, as Shantelle was talking about, the different ways that you can engage in educational outreach is also present there and phenomenal. So thank you all. We have a message from Juliana asking about how much of an undergraduate science background are you looking for? So I wonder, Molly, if you can talk about that, but then maybe Shantelle, you could talk about kind of your science training coming into this, but also what you've seen from colleagues or felt during your first year courses and stuff. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach because you do not have to be a science major. We're not necessarily looking for science majors. However, it is a science heavy class, and this is where it would be great for Shantelle to weigh in. If you don't have some background in science, it's going to be very difficult, those introductory courses for you. And so you only pick 3 of them, which means you can kind of pick the things you have the best background in. So you don't need you don't need to have chemistry and physics and biology and geology, which is really kind of what we're looking for in our MS and PhD students. So you don't need to have all of that, but you do need to have a good enough background in science, and you need to have some math through maybe calculus, because you're going to need those skills in order to do well in the classes. Do you want to add to that, Shantelle?
Sure, yeah. In terms of background, I know in my cohort specifically, there are students that came directly out of undergraduate, and there are also students that worked for a few years and then came back to get either a master's or a PhD. So it kind of varies in terms of experience. And I know for the students who took a few years off in between their schooling, the courses were definitely a challenge at first, but there's plenty of opportunities where if you were struggling, you can meet one-on-one with the professor. Other students are always willing to help you. Definitely what Molly said, a little bit of a science background helps. You don't have to be all in with science, but it definitely could help you because the courses are a good bit of work, and it definitely will give you a little bit of a jump start if you know some of the basic things.
Yes, I agree. And I wanted to actually add to something that Shantelle just said, which is we're not necessarily looking just for students who are coming out of undergrad. If you've been out in the professional world working for 10 years and you want to come back and get an MA degree, that's fantastic. And we really welcome applicants like that. There may be, a little bit of a startup difficulty because it's been some time since you're in classes. But the other part I want to actually tell you that's really important about that is typically when our students come from undergrad or within a few years of undergrad, their letters of reference, which is one of the requirements in the application, their letters of reference typically come from faculty at their undergraduate institution. And we don't want you to reach back to some faculty that you knew 10 years ago. We are perfectly happy to get letters of recommendation from that coworker that you work with that knows what you do and knows your skills and strengths and can speak to them. And we'd really rather have that, someone who can really talk about you, than we would someone who, you know, kind of remembers back when you were in class. So that's something to think about in the application process.
Thank you. We only have a few minutes left before we need to ring off. So I think unless a really pressing question comes in, we'll wrap up with going around, and I would like to hear from the three of you, what was the most important part of your time at VIMS so far, for Shantelle or for Jill or Molly? What did VIMS do best and was the best for you? I'd love to hear it.
What VIMS really did best for me, and partially this, I have to say, was down to my advisor, Jill Bieri, who understood and embraced the idea that I didn't actually at the time want to go into academia. I wanted to go out and work in the management field. Because of this unique role we have with the state, this integration we have with all these organizations through the state, I had a lot of opportunities to engage in that kind of thing. And that was really, really defining for me in terms of my career trajectory. Even though I came back to academia, that was still a defining aspect of it. Plus, it was fun. Had a good time.
It was so long ago for me, it's hard to say the one thing. I think about it from my perspective now. I definitely have benefited so much throughout my career because of the relationships of the faculty and the staff at VIMS. You know, just like feeling comfortable reaching out to the different disciplines of people and knowing, you know, they're continuing their research and who does what and connecting that like throughout just my career has been really valuable.
For me, I guess I would have to go along the route of opportunities. There's so many opportunities that have come up that I never would have dreamed of through VIMS and even through William and Mary. As John mentioned earlier on, we have so many things available to us at William and Mary as graduate students, even though we're separated from the main campus. So there are just so many different things. It's kind of overwhelming at points, but it's been awesome. And it definitely helps when you're going through graduate school to have all these different opportunities available to you.
Hey, thank you all. I love to hear that. To me, that we had a few questions on the same topic that I wanted to quickly answer, which are all about whether or not there was distance learning available or online classes offered. And I can answer that pretty quickly. Traditionally, we are not much at all of an online or remote learning campus. Typically, all of the classes that we do offer, and I think Shantelle or Molly could speak more about it, but require you to be here in the lab or here engaging with the advisors and the faculty a lot more directly. So was not traditionally the case. Now during COVID, it's kind of flip-flopped a little bit and we are a lot more remote, but I know that our faculty, once it's safe to do so, are chomping at the bit to be back in person and engaging with their students via the classroom in all of those different ways. And I know our faculty are going to links right now. I pass by classes that are taking place outside every Tuesday and Thursday morning because they want to have it there. So typically we're not a remote or online based graduate program. We're very cohort and community minded. And so we do that a lot better with everybody on campus. With that, I would like to now head into final closing remarks. I really appreciate everybody sticking in there. If I didn't get to your question, please email us. I would love to answer that. Also, if you're looking for more information about our graduate programs, please follow the link here. Just go to VIMS Education Graduate. All the info that you need is right there. You can also email me or us directly at admissions@vims.edu, or my personal email, jmgriffin@vims.edu. I'm happy to talk to you and answer whatever questions you might have. You can also find us on social media. If you use Twitter, we're at VIMS News or at VIMS Grad Dean. Both are great accounts. Or if you're more Facebook oriented, facebook.com/FBVIMS. Great way to stay engaged with everything going on at VIMS. Another great way, if after this and all the other webinars, you just are more madly in love with VIMS than you've ever realized, a great way to stay engaged is to subscribe to our newsletter, our e-newsletter, e-tidings. There's a few different ways to sign up for it, but that comes out regularly to provide you with insight into what research and what events and opportunities are available here at VIMS at the time. So it's a great way to stay connected with us. And then finally, if you found this really informative and would like to continue engaging with us, we would love to see you all at next week's fourth and final webinar. It's all about navigating the application process. I'm really excited for that one too. We'll do a really deep dive into what all the application components are. I'll have faculty advisors and the chair of the admissions committee on the webinar to really talk about how we review and read applications and what stand out to us as strong applications and what components we're really looking for. So even if you're not even thinking of applying here and now, or you know people applying to grad school for marine science, send them our way. We think this will be a great way of providing a lot more access and transparency about what goes into a graduate school application, because too often it's really kind of murky or intimidating, and we don't want it to be that way. So come join us one final night, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. For our final discussion. We'd love to have you, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all then. So with that, thank you all for joining me tonight. My panelists, thank you all for taking time out of your night to come and talk with the audience. We really appreciate it.